culture. Now, what opportunities did you have now to share your Guyanese culture with the people in Palau?
Yeah, I would agree, with your idea that, or the notion of having rich experiences. I think it's living my wildest dream.
Mm.
In Palau, like the foods, like I said, they were, common. But then I told this master diver named Francis Tourbillon that in Trinidad they have this dish called Palau. He said, Palau? It's like Palau. They got a food named Palau. I want to eat that food. And so
Spelled a
on.
little
So,
differently, but yes,
yeah,
same
but it
sound,
sounds.
same sound.
So he telling people that Pauline come from a place that got a food named Palau. So he asked me to make this food. So I got the rice, I got peas, and some good seasoning and so. And I cooked this food with coconut milk. Me didn't know if Palau was supposed to get coconut milk.
Mhm.
But I cooked this thing and gave this man, oh, he loved this thing. Everybody he would tell about this food. And it tasted good. And that's the one and only time I cooked it. And so he would mention that. And I also carried curry chana or chana curry.
Mhm.
So I would cook a big pressure cooker full of curry chana, and I would put frozen veggies inside, carrots and onions
Okay.
and
Mhm.
corn and so in the curry, and then I put marred man pork. Well, the
Mhm.
closest marred man pork I could get is basil.
Right, right. Basil is
Right,
actually close to what, very
in
close
a
to what we call
variety.
maribam pork in Guyana. Yeah.
Right. And then what has been the kicker meal is when I chunky it. Oh,
Well,
girl, I
you
put
have
that
to explain to the viewers what is chunky.
chunky is Indian cooking. You put the oil in the pan and you chop up garlic and put it inside. You fry up this garlic. You gotta open your window because everything will smell like garlic. And you put it inside. And when the chana curry finish, you take that hot oil with the garlic and you throw it inside and cover it fast. It goes shh like that. You cover it down fast. That is chunky.
Mhm.
I say chunky your dal, and you chunky your chana, but chunky the chana. Girl, that thing is to die for. And how I know? Is because the Palauans will lick it down. So when we will have we would have potluck at the church and you carry a dish. And I used to carry that. Once I figured out that that was a dish they loved, I would take that. And I discovered the old ladies are called the ma'as. And those ma'as and I were friends. And those ma'as would come with the cups and all the leftovers they would put in cups to carry home. So I knew it was a hit. I tried dal puri, but they didn't take to that. They loved the chonke chana. So
Wow.
that
Mhm.
was how I shared that aspect of my culture. I wasn't as culturally, what should I say, giving as I am now because I wasn't in that space as I am right now.
Mhm.
Um, so those are the things I went there for a different purpose. So I did that much. The other thing I found that happened as a result of that is that I learned to eat Asian food and Palauan food. So I would go home to Guyana every year. So I'd go to Guyana and I would want to eat all the Guyanese food at one go. Cook up rice, chana, even things I didn't even eat, black pudding, white pudding, everything I want to eat. I would eat all of those. And there came a time when I went back to Palau and I never felt like I was a Palauan, I was accepted. But then when I went home, I didn't feel like I felt like I was a tourist. So I was in between worlds. I
Yes.
wasn't Palauan, fully Palauan, and I was disconnecting with my own community because I
Mhm.
remember the day I looked at Guyana when I got off the plane and saw it through a tourist's eyes. It scared the hell out of me.
Mhm.
And my food did the same thing. I would want to eat all the Guyanese food, coming back to my point, and I would eat that 1 day, 2 day, 3 days. And then my palate wants to eat soy sauce and kimchi and tuna
Mhm.
with sticky rice and sashimi and ramen. I actually used to leave New York with a ocean of ramen and take it back just to itch to scratch that itch. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's what traveling abroad does for you. You
Right.
know,
And
you
it's
never remain unchanged. No, not at all.
right. And
And
especially
to
in
be
your case where you lived so far away from anything that might have been familiar in a sense, because like people who live
right,
in the urban centers of, let's say, some of the big countries like in New York and Atlanta and so on, you have the Caribbean groceries. You could get, the things that you're used to, the thing from, and you could still cook the kind of foods you used to back home, or even get them at
right.
restaurants. But then you being way out there, you, yes, I can imagine. So, Pauline, as you mentioned, you have lived outside of Guyana for many years, more than about 30 years or more. What
Uh,
are lessons that you have learned from living abroad?
um, well, in terms of Palau, I'm gonna stick with Palau for now because the other places there are tons of things I could tell you. One of the things I learned from living abroad, you have to be culturally sensitive. You don't need to change yourself to be in another culture. I never tried to be a Palauan. I wouldn't be a Palauan because when I was invited there, they wanted the me, the Guyanese me.
Mhm.
So I was that. But you still have to be culturally sensitive. Palauan culture is highly nuanced in some ways. For example, like I told you, they speak with the eyes and speak with the silences. So they might not come out and tell you directly no, but they might be silent. And if that silence is there, it's a no. Or you might ask somebody. You can ask somebody before and they might tell you, but if you do it, they will let you do it and the chips fall where they may. In terms of cultural sensitivity, so this is how I experienced cultural sensitivity. One day after school, the kids asked me, the teacher, what you gonna do this evening? I told them, I don't know. They asked me, what are you gonna eat? I didn't know. But I said, I feel like I'm gonna eat some ice cream. Now I thought that that was a passing remark and that was done. Around 6 that evening, between the domestic helpers and the parents, 6-gallon tubs of ice cream came from the UG family. It's a doctor's family, another doctor's family. And I was teaching the who's who. 6 tubs of ice cream,
Mhm.
vanilla. This was the only thing I liked.
Okay.
And so I had to now share this ice cream with the other teachers. And I learned you don't wish aloud. You don't wish out loud. The secretary told me that. Another time I saw somebody's t-shirt and I thought I was giving a compliment. Oh, that's a beautiful t-shirt. Well, it was there at my door. I said, but I don't want it. But you said you liked it. Yeah, I like it, but I didn't want it. No, I can't say I don't want it because it was
It is a gift.
nicely laundered and presented. So I have to take it. And I thought, oh my goodness, I need to be culturally sensitive because what works in one culture doesn't work in the other culture. People
Mhm.
might invite you to their place to eat. The Filipinos live there too. And I learned that in the Filipino culture, people will tell you, come in, you want to eat? Um, and they say your viand. What's your viand? And then they will tell you, want to eat my viand? And if you say yes, they might be mad at you because they have to invite you 3 times. If they invite you 3 times and you say yes, that means that they really want you to. But if they invite you one time, you're not supposed to say yes. You say, oh, it's okay. And if they really want to, they give a second invitation. You say, oh, it's okay. The third time, they really mean it. But if they ask you once, that means they're just being kind,
Okay.
you know?
Okay. Mhm.
So cultural sensitivity is a big deal.
Yes, but and that is very, very important, being sensitive to people's culture. You can't just, okay, this is how I do it, and this is how we do it, where we're from, and not pay attention to where you are and the people that you're interacting with in the space in which you are at that time.
But one more thing I can say there. You remember I talked about taking myself there because sometimes if you're not certain of who you are, you can be taken advantage of as well if you're overly sensitive. Because if you're kowtowing and tiptoeing around people, they don't see you as genuine. So if I felt this and I feel strongly about it, I will let them know. But in their culture, they would nuance things and it will go to a third party and even a fourth party before it comes to you. Well, I didn't do that. I was just like, speak my mind, especially when it was important to me. And I think they appreciated that. And I didn't get taken advantage of. Yeah.
So, Pauline, when we began, I mentioned that you inspired me to start this program because I was watching one of your videos where you were talking about your experience living abroad. And that is what inspired me to branch out and talk to people who have had such wonderful experiences outside of their home countries. And I know that you have various programs that you engage in, or various ways in which you share Guyanese and world culture. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that now. So if you could share some of, what you do to share culture.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that invitation. So I have a presence on Facebook and YouTube where I talk about Guyanese culture, in particularly village culture. And I use my village as a way of talking about communities. So even though I talk about Buxton village, it could be any village in Guyana because we share spaces. I tell the stories of my village and bear the culture so that we can learn from each other. And when I started out with What the Stories Say, the program is called on both YouTube and Facebook, I didn't envision Mel would come along and carry the story further. But that was the whole idea. If we all tell stories, we're much richer and much wiser. And, we also give credence to the experiences we've had. I write books as well. I wrote a book called Whispers in Our Ears, Afro-Caribbean Proverbs. And it's a journal where people can write the stories. Many people tell me, I want to write about my culture. I want to write stories. I don't know where to start. That's the book that you can start with because you can tell your stories with your encounters with Afro-Caribbean proverbs. You don't have to know them, but when you read the meanings and so on, you might have life experiences that you can write about. And then you can have them in one book and you can gift them to your family. You can leave them in your will so that people coming after you would know what your thoughts are and things like that. And like I said, it's a way to begin to tell your story. I wrote Navel String. Navel String is about that umbilical cord that drops off of people's belly when you're a kid. Well, in our culture, Guyanese culture, we bury that thing, or we have this notion that if your navel string is buried, we say navel string is buried, then you belong to that place. It's a way of belonging. So I wrote that book to talk about the local culture, to link it with African culture. And a lot of cultures around the world have a similar thing. So just with this navel string that connects you to the life source, our stories can connect. So that's one. And then I also am in the process of publishing Dave and the Lime Tree. And that one is about a lime tree that's in our yard in the village and how we learn about caring for the environment. It's actually a STEM book, environmental science STEM book that kids can learn from. And I've been testing it out on Palau. A Palauan kid in Australia read the book and the reaction is just precious. So we have that kind of thing coming out there. Yeah, and the second Afro-Caribbean Proverbs book is in the works. So that's what I'm doing. I'm also even teaching courses like first time young writers masterclass, where I take kids from 8 to 18. You have the 8 to 12, and you have the preteens and teens and young adults. So those classes I teach like numbers of 2 to 6, 10 max. I teach them writing, not in a pressured way, but for them to explore their genius and bring out the magic of storytelling, cultural storytelling, or just any storytelling, unleash their creativity. And it's been very successful. So two kids that join my classes have their books in process. One girl is Afaf. She's Egyptian and she's telling her story, a STEM story too. And Lael Wills from Boxonian parents. She wrote her story. She wrote her story about the move. It's a very fascinating story, like a diary. So that one's at the illustrators. So these kids will have really books that share culture just because I'm telling stories and passing that on because it's our legacy. Yes.
Yes, yes, and I read the what the story say and Naval Spring and Dave and the Lime Tree, which, as you mentioned, are really tailored to children, and in some cases, children of the diaspora. So it's really a good way of getting the children to understand aspects of the country and the culture, and now even with the classes that you're doing and encouraging young writers, that is really a wonderful way, the way you're mentoring the young ones to keep the traditions going and keep the culture going, and to really improve on them, on themselves, and use their talents. Yeah, so that's beautiful, and really develop their creativity.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. 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 One more thing too, Mel. The mindset I was in when I was writing these books is intergenerational knowledge making, knowledge keeping, and knowledge transmission. You see, in the books, they have an adult, some children in different places in the world of Guyanese heritage, and an African child. At the end of the book has questions and so on that the readers can go out and do stuff and learn more. The reason I have that in there because parents now can be part of the conversation. See, it's an opportunity. So even though I'm writing for children, I'm writing for families too. These books are in conversations. So if people are sitting around during this COVID time or during this pandemic, they can pick up this book. Father read a couple of lines, child read lines, they can read it like that, like reader's theater. They can perform it. I have visions of these books being performed on stage or even just standing up in chorus and reading. So that's what I have in mind because we cannot just expect young people to absorb the culture without directly telling them what things mean. Back in the day, they just give you a proverb and tell you, "We'll figure it out." Nowadays, because we are more distant from the old storytellers, we need to explain things to young people so that we can ensure that our culture lives on.
Yes, yes. And so as we conclude, what are your final thoughts on the importance of appreciating other cultures?
I would say this, regardless of where you've come from, we all have the same needs. We want love, we want appreciation, we want to be valued, we want to pursue happiness, and we want to live a life of well-being, a sense of well-being. Everybody wants that. So whether you're a Palauan or a Guyanese or an American, we need some basic things. And living overseas, I realized that like I said before, you don't need a lot of money to be happy. Happiness comes from within, and happiness comes from sharing yourself with others. I remember when I had a paradigm shift in Palau, a major paradigm shift. And it made me realize that what I bring to the table is very important because it's a community. We're working in a community of people, no matter where you are. That's so valuable because if you focus just on self, then you miss the mark. You miss the whole thing. You miss the experience. So I would say to people, if you go abroad, don't try to replicate your life wherever you came from. Don't try to figure out how many dollars it gonna mean in Guyana. We go through that thing for a while. Oh, you get $10. Oh, this is so many dollars in Guyana. No, you got to live in the culture. And one of the Palauans used to say, rice in America and rice in Palau is still rice. It might be 50 cents there, it's dollar here. You still have to pay for it. So the experiences can be similar if we just look for the similarities, we can connect. We are more alike than we're different.
Yes.
And I must say, I applaud the Palauans for giving me that opportunity. and for the places and the people who allowed me to live this wonderful life. You don't have to be rich. All you have to have is an airfare. And sometimes I didn't have the airfare. I have mileage and just travel. Yeah. And eat ramen and drink water.
Yeah. So on that note, yes.
Do it.
Yes. Thank you so much, Pauline. Really, really appreciate hearing about your wonderful, rich experiences. And I know that our viewers have listened, they've watched, they've learned, and want to invite them to come back, come again, and meet new people, learn from their experiences. As we continue with we're going to continue with episodes as we go on taking our culture to the world. Thank you once again, Pauline.
You're welcome.